Hello everyone, it's Mrs. Fondra here today, and our lesson is going to be all about ancient Mesopotamia. That is quite the mouthful, isn't it? Can you say that with me? Mesopotamia. 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 It doesn't even sound like a real word after you say it so many times, right? So let's dive right in and talk about this ancient land and some of the art that they made. All right. So where is Mesopotamia? That is a great question. This place was originally called the land between two rivers because guess what? It was between two rivers. And if you would look on a map today, you will not see Mesopotamia because it doesn't exist anymore. Today, where Mesopotamia was is now modern day Iraq. So it's across the ocean from us in the Middle East. And this group of people were around from 3500 BCE, before the Common Era, to about 539 BCE is what the experts believe. So that was about 5,000 years ago. And if you remember talking last year about an ancient civilization, these times might sound similar to the ancient Egyptians, because you know what? They existed at the same time, just in different parts of the world, all right? Now, this is actually older than ancient Egypt, and it was the first civilization to come up with writing, okay? That's what makes it an ancient, not prehistoric, this is historic, because remember we talked cave people were prehistory because they couldn't write things down. So technically, this is the beginning of a written history, so the Mesopotamians were the first to write it down. Nowadays, if you go over there, a lot of ancient Mesopotamia is still being discovered, and we're still learning a lot of it because a lot of it was actually buried underneath the sand. So people are still there digging it out and learning a lot along the way. All right. And I have students often ask me, well, why is it gone? Where'd it go? What happened? The reason why Mesopotamia didn't really stay for thousands of years and we see it today is because besides war, which had a lot of conquerors coming in trying to take over that land because it was pretty fertile, which means that it could grow plants pretty easily. Besides people invading and the environment changing, which it got hotter and hotter and it turned more into a desert climate, a lot of scientists think that because they couldn't figure out how to continue to water their crops throughout the year, that eventually they didn't have food. So you can't really live somewhere there's no food, right? So if we continue along here, let's talk about a little bit of the art that you could find in Mesopotamia. The reason people back then would make art is because they wanted to do with their religion and their political beliefs. So they didn't make it for fun, they had a purpose behind it. They usually dedicated their art and their buildings to the kings and the gods to like make an offering to them. And Mesopotamian art was very minimal. If you listen to the word minimal, it sounds like minimum or like the very, very basic. And the reason that is because they didn't have many resources or things to make art. So they used the minimum. They were very minimal. They used a lot of natural resources like stones, and they would import metals, which means they brought in metal from other places because they didn't have a whole lot. And that's what they used to make their art. And a lot of times, these little statues that I have a picture of right here, they were used to kind of pray to the gods for rain because they needed rain to have their crops. And like I said, that didn't end up working out very well because they didn't get crops. So this is where I like to kind of compare and contrast or like look at the similarities and differences between ancient Egypt, a place we've studied, and this new place. And they were around the same time, so they're really kind of fun to look at together, how they're the same or different. So I like to always say Mesopotamia is the hardcore version of Egypt, all right? Because in Mesopotamia, the water was so unpredictable and irregular that they couldn't control their crops and to know when things would grow. Egypt, they had regular flooding. They knew when the crops would be watered. It was easy, right? Again, Mesopotamia was hot, dry, very, very desert-like. But Egypt was similar, but not as hot. So again, a little easier. Ancient Mesopotamia, hardcore, all right? Mesopotamia was on a very big open area. Like I said, it was between two rivers, and they got invaded by other people a lot. And one of the reasons why they don't exist anymore. Ancient Egypt, they were kind of in a valley and surrounded by desert. So people would have to cross a desert to invade them. So they're a little bit more protected from attacks. In ancient Mesopotamia, they had these gods that were violent and unpredictable. You never know when they'd get mad at you and like send storms and disease and they're very hardcore. Ancient Egyptians, the gods were nice and predictable. Okay, do you see a similarity here? A little harder, a little easier for ancient Egypt, harder for Mesopotamia. So Mesopotamia, we also had sacrifices to make the gods happy. Don't want to sacrifice things. In ancient Egypt, they just did some talking and the gods were happy apparently. All right. And also Egyptians, we talk about the afterlife a lot, where they were mummified and they could just go to the afterlife when they died. That was easy. Mesopotamia, nope. It's dark, sad, not a great place to be. So like I said, they have some things in common, but Mesopotamia, hardcore. They do it a little more heavy than the Egyptian did. All right. So I did talk about their ancient writing and why Mesopotamia has a history. And one of the famous things that comes from this time is Hammurabi's Code. Now, Hammurabi, that's another fun word to say, another fun name, was a king. And he decided, you know what? We should write down our rules and our laws. So this is the first kind of law book or sort of guidelines that people had. Can you read these symbols that are right on the right side of the slide there? No, you probably can't read that. I can't read that. This was what their language looked like. If we would show them our ABCs and our alphabet, do you think they could have been able to read it? No, but it makes sense to us and this made sense to them, all right? So this was written on a super tall pillar and it was put in the middle of the city. So everyone had to see it and there was no excuse as to why they broke a rule, all right? Some of these rules are kind of, like I said, hardcore. So let's talk about some of these crazy rules that they had, all right? So if a son would strike his father, like hit his dad, they would cut the son's hand off. Oh, that's pretty hardcore, isn't it? Just for maybe playfully hitting your father. Don't hit your dad, otherwise they cut your hand off. And a really famous rule that maybe you've heard before, if a man put out the eye of another man, so poked out the eye of another man, his eye would get poked out. Have you ever heard the saying, an eye for an eye? Yeah, that comes from ancient Mesopotamia. So if you accidentally bumped someone hard enough and their eye fell out, they're going to take your eye out too. Hardcore! If any man should strike a man of higher rank, so if like you hit your boss or someone who was a little higher up in the social pyramid than you, you would get 60 blows with a whip. So they would whip you if you hit someone above your ranking. Don't hit people, they would whip you. That's bad. Hardcore! And the last one, which I think is kind of interesting, another interesting one. If a builder, someone who builds homes, built a home and the house collapsed on a family, killing the family that lived there, then the builder would die because he built a bad house. So, like I said, they had really, really strict rules because they were hardcore. All right. So I think we got that point across. So let's look at some of the art that went along with this hardcore, really tough kind of culture. All right. This is called a ziggurat. It almost has that pyramid shape where they have those big diagonals going up, but it's almost more like a square building that help keep the intruders out. So these are huge walls. If you would be looking at the, let's see, over by these stairs over here, you would probably be as big as my mouse is right there. These are massive. These are huge structures, huge towers, right? These are pretty cool. They also had a lot of scenes and art about hunting. And it was a really prized thing to go hunting for lions, which is kind of something we would not do today because we want to protect the lions because there aren't a ton of them around. But back in ancient Mesopotamia, the kings would go lion hunting. So you see a lot of hunting scenes and a lot of lions because those were important, strong animals to the people. All right. And I love these ones. These are actually in a museum. The picture on the left is an actual gateway that they found, and they took it and they moved it inside a museum to restore it and kind of bring it back to its glory. So that's a huge wall that they moved into a museum. In the center there is the face of a king. So that was made out of metal, and they look at that fancy, huge beard. They always had really big beards back in Mesopotamia. It's kind of cool. And then on the far right image is a king, kind of with that sphinx body. You know, in ancient Egypt, there's a sphinx with a man head and lion body. Very similar, except for this one has wings. All right. So what we're going to be doing, we have a couple of different projects from here. Some of us might be doing these Tel Asmar figures, hint, hint. But I'm going to pause the video right here, and I'm actually going to jump into what your specific grade level project is, all right? So stay tuned. Hey, second grade, your project for Mesopotamia is drawing a ziggurat. Can you say ziggurat? It's kind of a fun word to say too, right? This looks a little complicated, but promise this will not be as tough as you think, because we're going to break it down into steps and you're going to draw with me, all right? And the beauty of this being a video, you can click the pause button or the rewind button, and I'll be here telling you what to do as much as you need me to, all right? So I'm going to actually switch over to this camera right now. I'm looking at my laptop at the moment, so you can see what I'm drawing, okay? So, like I said, while you're watching this, if you need to pause it and change stuff, do it, okay? Now, I'm switched over to my desk camera, all right? I would suggest grabbing a pencil for this and a piece of paper. This isn't a huge piece of paper, so you can go smaller, that's okay. I'm going to use a Sharpie so you can see it a little bit better, all right? Actually, let me see if I can twist this a little bit more. No. Hi, Dwayne. That's my little rock friend. All right, so from here, we're actually just be drawing a bunch of rectangles, big rectangle, medium rectangle, and baby rectangle, and maybe a couple of triangles at the bottom to make those stairs, okay? So here we go. With your pencil, we're gonna do the biggest rectangle first. And you can see there's still some space on the sides of my ziggurat for the sandy desert. So I'm gonna just draw a bigger rectangle like this. If you would like to use a ruler, you are welcome to. I'm just going to do it freehand though on my own. All right, so here's my base of my cake almost. It's like a cake. From here, I'm going to add this little itty bitty rectangle where those arches are, okay? So in the middle of this cake, I'm going to make it touch that rectangle, and I'm going to go up, over, and down, okay? And if you even want to put like a little arch in here right now, you can, just so you remember what that is. We'll do the other side of that in just a bit, okay? And from here, the medium rectangle does not touch the front rectangle, and the top rectangle does not touch the medium one. You see there's a little space in between each one. So I'm going to make a slightly smaller rectangle, but I'm not going to touch the bottom of it. All right, I'm going to start here. I'm going to go over. Oopsie, I hit my arch. That means I can't draw through it. We're playing the line game here, friends. We'll go through the arch, and then we'll continue drawing. And then we'll go up, and we'll go up, and then we'll connect them. Okay, middle one, and then we got the baby one. Remember, still doesn't touch. We're gonna do a floating, it looks like a floating cake right now. All right, look at that cake. Cake with an archway. Okay, three big rectangles, one small rectangle. You got this, all right? Now, here's where it's gonna get a little three-dimensional, all right? To make anything look three-dimensional that is geometric, which are these straight lines and angles, we just have to draw a few extra lines, all right? So over on the right side here, okay, where my finger is kind of off the camera, we're gonna do two little lines going back and back, okay? Two little lines, back and back, okay? You wanna make them kind of even with the top one, but that's okay if they're not quite. And we're gonna do that with all of the rectangles, okay? We're gonna go back and back. We're gonna go back and back. All right, so I just added 6 little lines, right? And then we're gonna connect them with a vertical line. So 1 vertical line, 2 vertical lines, and 3 vertical lines. All right, so we got the side happening right here of our ziggurat. All right, so We also have to add one of these diagonal lines on the other side. So it's going to be going up to hit the building above it now, okay? So from this corner, we're going to go diagonal, hit the building, can't go anymore. Next rectangle, go to the building, out of room, can't go anymore. And this one, we're going to do an itty bitty one on top to kind of look like this itty bitty one on top. Boop. There we go. Got some more diagonals happening. Now, from here, you might have to tweak it a little bit. And that's okay, because we got to make the rest of our building. There's kind of a big hole happening on this side of our building. This end is pretty solid, right? This end, there's still some holes. So from here, on these corners, you see these kind of rhombus shaped things? We're going to do a line going back. And we want it to almost look like it goes behind the building. So I'm going to do a straight line out here. And I might actually end up making my rectangle a little bit bigger. Okay. This big thick line right here goes to touch the corner of that one. And then this one I'm going to make a little bit bigger too. And the top one is just a nice flat line for your roof. Look at that. Got some nice three-dimensional looking ziggurats here. And this is the beauty of you guys having a pencil. You can erase and change things. I have to use whiteout, so I would go back and erase this extra line, and we'd be pretty good. All right. Now, here comes some fun stuff. We are going to do the stairs. Whoop, whoop. This is fun. So from here, see our little rectangle again? We're going to go straight down. Whoop. And then from the top of our stairs, we're going to do a diagonal line to go all the way off our paper. Ready? All the way off to our ziggurat. We're going to do the one. Got another one. And we're going to actually fill this little space with lines to make stairs. Look at that. All right. And from here, the bottom of our stairs, we're going to connect it to that triangle kind of shape right here, right? Oof. Got some nice ramp now. And again, we got this little line. You can erase yours. But Mrs. Fondre, got to use the whiteout. Got to use that whiteout. I can use the whiteout. There we go. So, and then on the other side, we have another nice triangle thing. We're going to do from corner up, corner down, corner up, corner down. But you can actually see the stairs on this side of this one. So we're going to do one more bonus line and add stairs going up here. All right, look at that. Got a nice little ziggurat here. There is another archway I put at the top of this rectangle so they can go in the ziggurat. Okay, and the top of my rectangle, or not my top rectangle, the top of my little rectangle right here, we can also make that one look three-dimensional by doing those diagonal lines, diagonal lines, diagonal line, and then we get it done. Okay, and I can even put a little bit of the archway here too so they can go on the stairs. All right, so we have one thing we haven't done yet. It's a pretty nice looking ziggurat though. We need to put our ziggurat on the ground. So we're gonna play the line game where we draw a line until we hit something. Whoop! Can't go. They gotta go through the ziggurat, but can't draw a line. And then I'm gonna go at the other end. Whoop. All right. So we got a nice little ziggurat happening here. All right. So from here, if I can switch my cameras back to where they belong, we are going to be coloring these. All right. I would recommend using a colored pencil or a crayon. And if you have a Sharpie or a marker at home, you could definitely outline those pencil lines you did, okay? So it really makes it pop. Because again, there's some outlines here, you'll really see it, all right? So I know that's a lot of lines, a lot of shapes. Feel free to rewind. Feel free to try a few times because now this is something totally new, it's something different. So it's gonna be tough, that's okay. We learn when we do difficult things. I've seen second graders do this before. I know you can too. All right. So if you have any questions, comments, any concerns, let me know. You can send me a message or send me an email and I will respond and try to do whatever I can to help you out from home. All right. Happy creating. Can't wait to see those ziggurats in Seesaw or the Google Classroom.